Hello, and welcome once again to Chris G Photography. I just got done with a three-part series of videos about why I got into photography, why I got out of photography, and now why after a 15-plus year layoff, I'm getting back into photography. But there's one more thing I wanted to talk about. And I think a lot of folks, and the reason I wanted to talk about this, because I think a lot of you will relate to this. And what I wanted to talk about is the fact that I am not quitting my job. I have no intention at the moment of becoming a professional photographer. In other words, where my living 100% comes from photography or all the things that comes with it, teaching, selling prints, all of that other stuff. And I want to explain why. First off, it is April of 2020. And I just noticed I'm doing this smacking thing with my lips. It's not something I normally do, but I think it's something that because I'm talking and don't have a drink and don't want to interrupt, taking a drink of water. So I think I'm just, trying to, but so forgive me for that. But anyway, I am not becoming a professional nature photographer. I'm not quitting my job. The reason being is that it is it is April of 2020, and the COVID virus is raging. I am locked up in my home. I've been sheltering in place now for over a month. My wife is in the same boat, so this is my little excursion out into the world for the day. But I can't imagine what it would be like right now to be self-employed. Can you imagine that unless you're working, you're not making money? And I know there's a lot of YouTube photographers out there still posting YouTube content, but I cannot imagine that they are not sweating bullets, because they do make their living by going out, taking pictures, teaching workshops and things like that, and none of those things are happening. And if I were them, I would be really nervous right now. I would be wondering, when is this going to start back up? And quite honestly, when you do something like photography, whether selling prints or doing workshops, if there's an economic downturn, what are people going to get rid of in their lives? What are people going to say, I can do without this to get through these rough times? It's things like photography, things like vacations, travel, that sort of thing. So that's a huge contributing factor to the reason I am not going to just up and quit my job. The second reason is it would be really unfair to my wife. I introduced you to her in the third video, and my wife is a genius. She is very smart. She's very good at what she does. I've had an opportunity during the shelter in place to really watch her work, and she's really good at what she does. She's actually a human resources professional, and I've seen her do some awful tough things. Matter of fact, when I left the home just now, she was doing an awful tough thing. And she's very thorough, very intelligent. She is good at what she does. And so I'm very proud of her for that. And she makes a considerable amount of money more than I do, a considerable amount. But she still does not make enough to pay all of our bills. And I think it would be really unfair to saddle her with the responsibility of paying for my photography. If I'm going to be a professional at something, that has to be my profession. I have to be earning enough money to not just pay for the cameras and pay for the travel and stuff like that comes along with outdoor photography. I got to be paying my bills too. And that is, again, a very large consideration of why I am not becoming a professional nature photographer. This is all part-time. The third reason is I've been bit before. I have had a photography business go out of business. I know what it's like to invest everything you have, shoot for years and years and years, have some successes, have some turnbacks, but ultimately to fail. And it hurts and it sucks, but it is true. If you look at the statistics, and I'm not going to sit here and quote them, but a lot of small businesses actually end up going out of business. So I was just another statistic in a line of statistics. Not really surprised. I gave it a shot. I'm going to give it another shot. But that's another reason I am not going to quit my day job. Excuse me. And probably the last reason is, and again, this is me, this is speaking from my personal experience, but this is going back to when I was in camera retail, 20 plus years ago now, is you're sitting there selling cameras. And I'm going to give you a specific example. We had this guy, and his name he was an elderly gentleman then. I think he was a very heavy smoker, so I have no idea if he's even still alive. But his name was Carl. He was on disability and decided he was going to become a professional photographer. And so he would come in and he would talk to us, all the camera salespeople, and pick their brains about cameras and lenses and stuff like that. And he addressed himself as a professional photographer. He knew nothing about photography. He didn't know what an aperture was, what a shutter speed was, how film speeds work. He didn't know any of that. And when he would get talking about photography, and you could tell he was getting lost and what you were talking about, and trying to explain, what an aperture speed, what a shutter speed was, what they did. And he would get confused, and I think he would get frustrated, and he would come out and say, well, I'm a professional. And yes, he had this really gravelly voice like that. He was a professional because he wanted to be a professional. He said he was a professional, but I don't know that that was actually his profession. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, if you're going to say you're a professional at something, you better be good at it. And he was not good at it. And photography is one of those things to where you can say you're a professional at it and really not be good at it. And he was one of those people. He didn't know what he was doing, and yet, because he said he was a professional, he was. To me, there's something more to being a professional than just saying it. You have to not necessarily prove it, but you at least got to know what you're talking about. If somebody says they're a professional auto mechanic and doesn't know anything about cars, then they're not a professional auto mechanic. They may tinker with their own car and probably screw it up in the interim, but they're not a professional mechanic. So yes, I guess you could say, as far as people calling themselves a professional, I'm a little jaded. That's on me. That's my opinion. I mean, there are people probably out there who call themselves professional nature photographers, or photographers in general, who do make money at what they do, but they would not make enough to support themselves. They have a spouse that is doing very, very well, pays the bills, which allows their spouse to go out and be a professional photographer. And that's fine. If that's you, I'm not talking down to you. I don't look down upon that in any way. But in my circumstances, for me to be a professional photographer, I need to be making a pretty decent living at it to pay my part of the bills and not put that all on my wife. Now, if my wife was, just making a little bit more, maybe I could take a part-time job and be a part-time professional or a semi-professional. I used to probably call myself a semi-professional photographer. But I'm a little ways from that yet. Do I want to quit my job? Yes. After days like this, there's nothing more than I would like to not have to be a part of the corporate rat race. It has nothing to do with the corporate rat race. It's me. I struggle working in an office, but it's something I have to do. It's something a lot of us have to do. It's probably something a lot of you do. You sit there and you want to go out and take pictures. You want to do whatever. If it's photography or painting or cycling, I don't know what it is. You might have a passion, but you have to work to pursue that passion. I'm no different than that. And that's why I continue to work. And someday maybe I will get to the point where I am selling myself or marketing or what have you, so I can call myself a professional and feel good about that, feel comfortable with it, feel that I am truly that, because I am not a burden on my family, but I'm actually contributing. And so until that day happens, I am not a professional photographer. I am not quitting my job, and I will take pictures when I can, and I will not just put things online or put things on YouTube for the sake of putting something on YouTube. It's got to matter. It's got to mean something. It's got to be as the best I can possibly do. So, again, my name is Chris. This is Chris G Photography. Soon there will be a chrisgphotography.com where you will see, first off, the images that I took when I was younger, and then I will gradually incorporate the digital images I've been taking over the last couple of years, and then hopefully this will blossom into something entirely different that, quite honestly, I can't even imagine right now. So for now, thank you for joining me, and thank you for coming and watching Chris G Photography and my YouTube channel. Thanks again.